Well, welcome, folks. This is Senator John Pappageorge welcoming you to the subject matter for today, Race to the Top. It's a very important school reform program that, if successful, will cause the federal government to assist us financially in making some very necessary improvements to our system. And we're very lucky to have with us Superintendent of Public Instruction, Mike Flanagan. Mike's been an educator for a long time. Mm-hmm. He has been the superintendent now. You're going into your 4th year. And so you've weathered the storms of Lansing, and we're very fortunate that you're with us. And
thank you, Senator.
We'll start with Race to the Top. It's an informal show. I'm John and you're Mike, and we're going to talk about Race to the Top.
Okay.
And Race to the Top consists of 4 bills. And what we're going to do in order is go through the 4 bills. And the purpose of these bills, again, is to compete with the other states for grant money to allow us to do what we hope to do in these 4 bills. And the first one is Senate Bill 926. And 926 requires school to provide teachers to make sure they have the basic classroom supplies they need to be an effective teacher. And it creates a system to match a student's performance with their individual teacher. And Mike, I'll let you go from there on that one.
Well, thanks, Senator, or John.
Yeah.
I appreciate the opportunity, too, because these are my old friends in your neck of the woods. I used to be superintendent in Farmington Hills area, and very familiar with the county. But one of the things that I wanted to mention related to that particular bill is there's a little misinformation that is out there, as if this is tying it into teacher performance on a one-time test.
No, I know it isn't that. That's right.
That's right. I think the legislature, I can't thank you all enough and your particular support on this, because this is a reform that finally will put our focus where it needs to be. For example, my daughter's a high school teacher, and you wouldn't want on a one-day test when maybe the kids are even having a bad day, or maybe you've got really poor kids that don't have some of the advantages. But what it's saying is these are going to be growth tests, so that over time you need to show that the student is achieving more over time, and that based on that should be part of a teacher's evaluation. And then the local collective bargaining groups figure out what part. They do that with the board and the superintendent and the unions together. So it's really a fair system. It does, as you say, it makes us very competitive on Race to the Top, which is $500 million that could come to this state. And that $500 million, we're pretty much going to have to spend one way or the other.
Sure.
So it would be nice to spend it with federal money rather than state money.
Right. The second bill is Senate Bill 981. And I should say that it wasn't easy reaching consensus on these things.
Right.
Especially when you get into things like charter schools. And what this bill says, it allows up to 32 high-performing charter schools. In other words, the ones that have really succeeded and can show that success, to open another charter school.
Right.
And it is limited only to those that are selected as high performers. It also creates a cyber school to help struggling kids, especially those who may have already dropped out. It requires teacher and administrator evaluation to improve their effectiveness. And it establishes the beginning of a merit-based pay system to reward high-quality teachers. Now, that wasn't easy to come to.
That's for sure.
And I'm sure you were in the middle of that as we were trying to get the legislation through.
Yeah. We had a team working with both the House and the Senate,
right,
and feel good about the results. There's probably a little piece here and there that all of us would change a little bit, but this is about compromise.
Yeah.
And in terms of the charters, I think we should once and for all be over the disharmony about it. You've got, we've got Republicans and Democrats. We've currently got a Democratic president, as you know, and a Democratic governor, both in favor of charters.
Sure.
It used to, in the old days, be thought of as kind of an angler thing back then.
Yeah.
We're long past that. These are legitimate public schools, and they can be started by traditional school districts, and some have done that. Many ISDs have. I was an ISD superintendent for a while, and we started the charter school at Henry Ford Museum in Greenfield Village. And it wasn't a disrespect to the rest of the school districts. You could offer things to kids on that site that you just couldn't possibly in a traditional school. But I think what you really crafted out well in the legislature was to start, instead of just a blank open cap change, it was saying take out of the cap, in effect, those that are really high performing and let those places replace them. So it gets away from the argument, because there are a handful of charter schools that aren't that good, just like there's some traditional schools that aren't. So it was really smart to say, let's take the high performing ones, and if they can, if our department decides that they reach that caliber, then they can open a second one. And I think that's a good policy.
It's always a good idea to reward success and not mediocrity or failure, and that's what we tried to do here. Sure.
It's a great way to think about it. Yeah. So I'm pleased with that bill also, and you know, the cyber schools, that's exciting. It's capped in terms of number of kids for now until we get a better handle on what that means. We've got a bit of a head start in my department, Department of Ed, because as state soup, I'm a constitutional officer and I can waive certain things. And one thing we have waived to a number of districts is seat time, which means that it's fairly common now that an alternative high school, where kids weren't making it in a seat-based model in a traditional high school, and then all we did was stick them in another seat-based model. And
at home
why,
or wherever they get to a computer. Sure.
Yeah. So that's exactly right. So now they can do it by computer, get credit, show proficiency. So we've got some experience in this. And so the cyber schools is just another important way to measure this. I think the legislature and the Senate and the House did a smart thing by, you know, testing it with 2 first, and let's get it right before we just go hog wild on this.
What about the administrator and the teacher and the evaluation process there?
Yeah, I think I said to the state board recently at our meeting, and we're on the internet once a month and MGTV, that we're also co-accountable. We should be evaluated that if the 2 million kids in this state, if the test scores aren't showing growth of that whole 2 million package year in and year out, we should be responsible for that. And it needs to go through the whole system. So an evaluation of an administrator now is also including, not just for a teacher, how your students are doing and are they growing over time. And you know, the main reason you do this is the best example I can think of is an elementary school teacher. He or she's got, you know, so much to teach, and they may be exceptional in helping kids read better, but they're not so great in math. Well, if that shows up over time, you don't fire the teacher. What you do is get them help in the math. And you focus, because look at, they've got to do math and science and reading and social studies and art and music. You're not going to be strong in everything. So I mean, it's really a smart way to get at, in spite of the fear that some of the organizations have tried to instill in teachers, it's just not there to be worried about. This is going to help them focus on where their weak spots are. And then instead of just going to like general professional development, you go to professional development in the area of your weakness. So it's smart.
Well, it's interesting. I think there's always been that tension between the teacher and the administrator. You go back to Plato's garden. He just wanted to teach in the garden, didn't want any interference, wanted to say whatever he wanted to say.
Right. We all want that probably a little bit. But
you've got the parents, and the parents say, here's what I hope you'll do for my kid. And there's a conflict there that you have to sort out.